Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from the Veeam team. Today, we are going to be taking a very deep dive into several of the Veeam components of the Veeam data platform, specifically taking a look at hybrid cloud installations. So how might you include cloud workloads in your data protection strategy with Veeam? And overall, how might you get a bigger picture of the protection state and other key indicators of success for your total environment, both on premises and in the cloud. My name is Leah Treshnecki. I am serving as the just intro host for you guys, and I'll be in the Q&A to answer any questions. But really the stars of the show today are my two colleagues. First, I'll be introducing Andrei Zhelescu. He comes to us from the Office of the CTO, specializing in several of our solutions, including Veeam Backup for Salesforce and Veeam Backup for AWS, Azure, and Google. We will also be joined today by my good friend Kirsten Stoner, also from the Office of the CTO, and she really is the absolute master of all things Veeam 1 at Veeam. And what's going to be really exciting today is really taking a look at both sides of the coin here. So how are we protecting cloud workloads specifically, and then how are we leveraging Veeam 1's observability to monitor, report on, and really get a good sense of data governance across a hybrid cloud installation. So that's the name of the game here. But to start, let's just talk a little bit about what we mean by the Veeam data platform. And Veeam, of course, has had some pretty tremendous evolutions over the years. Most of us on this webinar have been here for a very long time. Kirsten and I started back in 2014. Version 7 of Veeam Backup and Replication was what was on the shelf at that time. And it's been really tremendous to watch the growth and change of what Veeam is trying to do for our end users. And a lot of that change and growth has come from both a data protection across hybrid infrastructures and offering more and more critical capabilities to control your data, to be able to respond faster to things like ransomware threats. So we're really just trying to up-level and reach more and more under a sphere of control for our end users. So with this diagram here, we're really showcasing what we mean by the Veeam data platform. Now, we do have two what we call extensions of the Veeam data platform. Veeam Backup for M365 and Veeam Backup for Salesforce are both offerings for software as a service solutions, of course. But then within the core of the Veeam data platform, that's where you can look to protect vSphere, which I'm sure most of you guys on the webinar today are certainly protecting with Veeam. But then also taking a look at Windows, Linux, SQL databases, and of course, the focus today, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud workloads. We even have a really tremendous offering for containers with our Kasten by Veeam solution, which is getting integrated more and more into the Veeam data platform with each launch. So it's really exciting to not only see all of the pieces of this, the components of this, but then to take a look at how we might tie it all together and why you might want to do that. So Kirsten especially is going to take us through quite a bit of that. But with that, that's the preamble I wanted to offer you guys. I'm going to now hand it over to Andre to take us through a demo of what it would look like to deploy a Veeam backup for AWS, Azure, or Google solution. So AZ, take it away.
Thank you so much, Leah. Can you tell me that you're seeing my screen, because I'm sharing Veeam Backup and Replication version 12.
We've got it.
To see that. All right. Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. And since even the title of the session was all demo session, but jump into Veeam products, which will be multiple products today. We will try to to juggle them a little bit, and then to join them all together in order to see some information about the workloads we're trying to protect, especially in the cloud, in our case in the hybrid cloud, all together via Veeam Backup and Replication and via Veeam 1. So let's get started. Live demo, you can expect everything. Okay, I'm assuming right here, right now, that you guys somewhat familiar with Veeam Backup and Replication. Some of you have been practicing it for years. Some of you might be new to the company and just joining. But anyways, the assumption here is that you use this product in order to protect your like regular physical or virtual environments, mostly VMware, because we know that VMware is it's very popular among all of you today. And then you've been kind of using the product, you've been like having your VM backups. But the idea of the session to show you that, you know, whenever you're expanding to the cloud and whenever you're thinking about like cloud protection as well, you can also, you know, it's not going to be that hard for you to kind of like learn a lot. Well, on this journey, you will definitely learn some concepts, but trust me, you know, I've been here well, more than 10 years. I've been seeing this transition, and it's most likely it's just fine. Okay, so let's kick it off. What I'm going to show you that I've got Veeam Backup and Replication version 12. I've got, you can see some like backups. I've got some backup jobs inside of the backup infrastructure, and I know sometimes it's really hard to see, but I will try my best to kind of zoom in and out to actually to show you various things inside of the console. That I've got some like stuff protected, and under the managed servers, I've got my vCenter. With obviously virtual machines, and everything's good. However, our cloud journey would actually lead us to AWS and to Microsoft Azure, and this is something that I would like to kind of kick it off right away. Okay, so I'm going to like navigate to my Microsoft Azure portal. Here it is. Okay, I hope you can see it. Well, good, you can see some virtual machines running, but then essentially what I'm going to do is get to Marketplace, which is Azure Marketplace. You don't need to show me private offers. Again, I'm good. And then I'm going to search for Veeam. This came a little bit wrong. So you can see our offerings in Azure Marketplace. Now, what I'm interested in is specifically this one called Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure Bring Your Own License Edition. Why is it important? Because I'm going to deploy it right away, right now, and I'm going to select this one, not free edition, just because I've got already you know, license from Veeam, and it's Veeam Universal License, which means that we can cover not only the physical and virtual workloads, but also expand it to the cloud as well. I'm going to click on Create and just show you how easy it is to create something. Okay. So this is a great virtual machine procedure. If for those of you like being new to the cloud, like you have to follow it. That's the wizard. You have to kind of to select the settings that you are going to select, which the first one would be subscription, but since I've got just one, it's already pre-selected. And then I'm going to deploy it in East US availability zone data center. Then the aim of the machine would be HC for this hybrid cloud demo, and then Azure. HC demo Azure. Sounds good to me. Okay, then we're going through some like standard settings, such as security type. I'm fine with standard. I'm going to use the standard image, and then I'm going to slightly increase the size of this particular VM, which is I want to go for 416. Where is that? B series, E series. Actually, never mind that. Yeah, 2 virtual CPUs and 8 gig of RAM would be enough for me today. And I'm gonna select the authentication type using my local kind of credentials, something that is going to be inserted into this VM once it's, you know, configured. And that's really it. Okay, so I'm done with basic settings and going to go for the disk settings. You see, there is already, you know, one of the disks should be kind of already included with this virtual machine in Azure. And I gotta see the premium SSD, that's fine for me. So it's like really easy going through all, you know, the settings of the wizard, but essentially showing you that, you know, it's not more than kind of selecting the virtual machine name and then, you know, going through all of the the particular individual settings over here, and selecting my virtual network in Azure, selecting my subnet, and selecting the, actually applying for public IP. So it's going to be in public and going to be available here. Okay. As for the network security group, I'm pretty sure that I've got already VPA pre-configured security group. Otherwise, you would have just I would have created a new one with all appropriate settings. And then I'm going to hit this one to delete public IP and security group when the VM is deleted. Not security group, but the NIC of the virtual machine. And that's really it. I don't need any advanced configuration, no management. I don't typically I don't even use boot diagnostics. I'm fine with this one, and there is nothing under advanced. So I'm gonna click on review and create. So my main idea is to launch this process as soon as possible. Okay, I gotta check the settings real quick, and I gotta click on create. Okay, so what happened here is that I went through that kind of marketplace offering, that offered me Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure. And then I have selected to deploy it. Okay, so while deploying, now let's come back to Veeam backup and replication, and let's actually see the other way how you can deploy those cloud appliances. Okay, so obviously we've got something in Azure, and it would be the time that we will create something in AWS. So under the backup infrastructure, you've got the managed servers. And if you click on add new server, you can navigate over here and find your way into Veeam cloud native backup appliances. So I'm going to click that one and select Veeam backup for AWS. Okay, so let's deploy new appliance. Let's see the procedure, from the Veeam backup replication kind of eyes. On the first step, I'll have to navigate and specify my AWS account. If you feel that is a little bit too kind of difficult for you, let's come to your AWS console, and under your name, it would be right here. So you'll get the security credentials. Actually, yeah, so that would be easy, where you can create your the secret and the key, which would be used in order to access infrastructure on behalf of you. Okay, so the AWS account is already provided into Veeam backup replication console. Now I have to specify the data center where my deployment will take place. So I'm using the European one in Frankfurt. Okay, as for the instance name, again, hybrid cloud, demo, AWS. Just trying to make sure that we're somewhat aligning all of them all together. So it would be visible in Veeam backup replication and later in Veeam 1. Okay, the same procedure over here. Whenever the appliance would be configured, obviously it will need to get some settings, such as virtual private clouds, obviously in the same data center, the subnet, and security group. I think I'll go for VPA. And then I've already got the public IP address kind of pre-assigned to this appliance. So to make sure that the selected network security group contains a rule for specified backup server IP address. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay, dynamic IP address or a static IP. This is actually a good setting, because whenever you feel like you're going to, kind of turn it off and on from time to time, there is always an option to kind of to have a static IP address, which is going to be public one. It's going to be, AWS is going to charge you for that, but still you will have just one IP address kind of assigned to you and to that Veeam backup for AWS. I got to choose the dynamic one. Okay, and now let's specify the following administrator credentials. I get to use the same account that I use for those public cloud appliances all the time. And you can see here I've got already the key pair as a part of the security configuration configured in AWS. Okay, so now Veeam backup for AWS appliance is being deployed to my AWS account. So this process typically would take around 10 minutes. So while we're seeing the process is doing fine, we're going to come back to my Microsoft Azure. Okay, now what we're seeing is that the deployment of this particular operation, create VM under Veeam Azure backup, it's done. The deployment already finished, which means that I can click on the list of my virtual machines, and I should be able to see the new one created over here, HC demo Azure. Okay, so it's running. I get the public IP address over here, which I'm going to copy, and I'm going to access it. So let's see if I can see something. Okay, so I'm seeing the standard warning because I haven't applied the SSL certificate yet, and I'm going to proceed. What we're doing right now is, you can see, obviously, we're preparing for the first run of Veeam Backup for Azure. And what's happening here is that we're going through some initial things, kind of like unpacking that VM from a template on the marketplace. And then we're initializing it. So we're making sure that all of the services that we need are running just fine. Then we're going to update this particular VM with, all the applications that it has inside, like security, like everything that kind of goes under the operating system level. And then we're gonna check whether there is any product update. I'm pretty sure that we're using the latest 5.8 version of Backup for Azure, so this should be fine. And then we'll start the services, and then we'll show you that the appliance is running, and we can go through its initial configuration, and we should be able to protect our data within Azure. So let's give it a couple of minutes, and meanwhile I'm seeing some questions. Okay, so I've got a couple of complaints. Kirsten and Leah, can you just confirm that the video is fine, the audio is fine, you're seeing me, you're hearing me? That's really important.
Yep, you're all good. I think sometimes, folks, if you're having any audio issues or video issues, it may help to drop and rejoin. And then if not, we'll also help you out on the chat if you guys drop and rejoin and still can't get connected. I'll try to find a support article for you guys. Webinars are fun. GoToWebinar is fun.
Okay, thank you, Leah. All right, so while this is being configured, actually, I think I'm going to show you something in Microsoft Azure that, probably requires your attention whenever you feel like you're going to do the same operation. So let's actually come back a little bit. This is my home screen under Microsoft Azure account. Okay, so one of the first important things whenever you feel like you're going to operate with this particular cloud, obviously, you're going to have a subscription over there, and then create a resource group, basically, like ideally for all kind of major projects or for the regions where you operate in. So this is something that you're going to create, and then you're going to create virtual networks. Okay, so what is virtual network? Obviously, it's a network. It's your way to actually to align those workloads and those virtual machines that are going to be running in Azure, and to make sure that they can see each other, to make sure that they, that there could be common security settings applied to them and whatnot. So one of the first things that I would like to point your attention to. Okay, can we? Okay, trying to show you a little bit closer, but never mind that. Okay, so under virtual networks, you'll probably create your virtual network in the region where you're going to operate. So for that virtual network, it's very important to click on service endpoints and make sure that you've got Microsoft storage added there, because this would be, that would be our way whenever the Veeam Backup for Azure is running using this virtual network and trying to actually offload backups into a Microsoft Azure blob storage. That would be a way for for this VM to communicate to blob storage. Okay, so why the service endpoint? So the traffic from that VM is not going out to the internet and then coming back from the internet, but it will be kind of redirected inside of the Azure. And then you'll thank me later, because obviously that's going to save you a couple of bucks. But then if you do not do that, later, Veeam Backup for Azure, it will, kind of warn you about that. So this is one of the things. Okay, well, make sure that you've got the subnet and you've got a lot of IP addresses available to you, so this is fine. So this is like one of the things that I wanted to mention. Let's quickly come back to Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, and as you can see, the initial configuration is already done. So, okay, so let's give it a try. I'm juggling it all together, so I'm just trying to make sure that we guys were seeing everything. Okay. Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure initial configuration, it actually requires you to read Veeam end user agreement and to actually agree to that. I'm going to do that. I'll click accept. And then we're seeing interface for the first time. Okay, so I'm inside of configuration, and I'm pretty sure that I've got a couple of things to do, because there is a red warning about that things to do. Okay, connect to Microsoft Azure subscriptions and add storage accounts. Okay, so let's click here right away, because this is the getting started page, and obviously it's like kind of warning me that I cannot really use it yet. Okay, Azure account. I'm going to provide a kind of friendly name. Oh, ACTEMA actually, that should be better. ACTEMA 1. Okay, and then I can either create a service account automatically, or I can specify the existing service account. I'm pretty sure that I've got the existing one, but just for simplicity of the configuration, I'm going to show you what it is. So basically you need to to be authenticated in this browser, which I am, and then pick account and provide that security code that the application have configured for you. So now it's asking me whether I'm trying to sign in to use Microsoft Azure CLI, which I am. And then whenever I click continue, I've got a cool message over here that, yeah, I may close the window now, and it should be very good to go. So as you can see, I have authenticated in Microsoft Azure using my account, which means that Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, whenever I click next, it's going to see, kind of my Azure, on behalf of myself, on behalf of my account, and would be able to perform operations over there just using it. Okay, should I add the service account to AD groups? I don't think I have to do it now. It's fine. Okay, so I gotta click on finish. What we've done here is just one of the steps for initial configuration, but we're getting there, don't worry. So there will be a few more steps before we actually configure our first backup policy and protect something, and possibly even delete something and then get it restored. Never mind that. So while the account is being added, let's quickly come back to Veeam Backup application to see how my Veeam Backup for AWS is doing. Okay, so we're installing updates. This is fine. Okay, let's come back here. Come back to getting started page. Okay, so now, as you can see, review workers configuration. This is the next step, and it's already kind of checked. But whenever I click on reviewing workers configuration, there is no worker over here. So I click on net, and for those of you not really familiar with the kind of worker concept and what it is, so initially, or essentially for us, it is a kind of a temporary proxy that we spin up using kind of predefined settings over here, and you can go and browse all of the settings right here, in order to process the traffic coming from the workload that we are trying to protect and move it elsewhere to Microsoft Blob storage, to kind of on-premises if we're trying to offload the data, just kind of processing the traffic and working with compression, things like that. So as I'm working for Azure, you have to specify the worker configuration for each region where you would like your data to be protected. So this is going to be East US. Let's click on apply, because this is where I would like my data to be protected. And then I'll select virtual network. I'm pretty sure that I'm using this virtual network, and then the same subnets. Okay, there we go, the default one. And then a network security group. I'm pretty sure that I have configured everything under VBA. I'll come back later to the security group because this is a standard security group with HTTPS enabled for inbound traffic. And I have an option here, do not assign public IP addresses to the workers when running FLR tasks, which is sometimes helpful because you don't want your data to be kind of exposed to the internet, but then again, it's mostly kind of an additional security thing that some of our customers, they prefer to do. So, okay, never mind that. I click finish. You can see that, yeah, everything's configured here under, under profile and under instances. I've got no data yet, but it's going to be there once, once it's going to be configured. Okay, so let's come back to getting started. I have reviewed worker configuration and I have added Microsoft Azure account, which means I've got one more thing to do for initial configuration is to add the first repository. And repository, for those of you not familiar again with cloud repositories, it's going to be one or them, like multiple folders inside of the containers inside of, in this case, Microsoft Azure Blob Storage. Okay, so HC, what is the demo? Azure 001. This would be the name of my my repository. Okay, now we have to specify the account on behalf of which the repository will be created. So that's this one. So that's fine. Now I gotta change, gotta select the storage account. And since I'm working inside of US, East US region, I'm going to point it to one of the containers that I have created already there. So it's East US Gen Purpose Storage, and it doesn't have any immutability included inside. But then if I wanted to, I would have pointed to other storage account with like container where the immutability could be actually configured. So I'm not sure if I actually have to do it, but it should be easy for you guys to decide what we're going to do. As you can see that my immutability setting over here is disabled. So this is fine. This is like totally expected. But then I'm just avoiding it for simplicity because obviously after this demo, I'll have to kind of destroy everything. So my account would not be charged that much. Okay, I'm gonna click on apply because this is going to be container VBA container. And I'm going to create a new folder, HC demo Azure 001. Demo. As you can see, I'll create all of the tiers, or I can actually click here and decide whether I'm going to, create one of those, but I'm going to create all of them, which means that I can kind of move data between different storage tiers inside of Azure Blob, which is good. And I click next. I'm not going to enable encryption, although it is really recommended. It is a good setting. I'm just doing it for simplicity right here, and I'm going to click finish. Okay, so 3 of those repositories are going to be created, like as we speak. We can see all of the operations that inside of the session log, because I've been out of configuration and I'm seeing that repositories are being created as we speak. Come on, it shouldn't take that much time. Typically, it's just a couple of seconds. But if let's say if something's going to fail, because of my misconfiguration, we'll check it with Kirsten because it would be much easier to, to kind of see it via Veeam one and see what actually I was doing wrong and what I was doing right, and whether I was actually able to configure everything all together. Okay, so now let's actually come back to configuration, getting started. Repository is still to do. Okay, this is fine. It needs a couple of more seconds to be to be done. So I gotta come back to session log. Oh, there we go. So I've got 3 new repositories created. Everything is success. I know I'm like moving between the screens, and I know for those of you who haven't really touched that product, it might be a little bit confusing, but trust me, it's it's just a matter of practice. So you touch it a few times and then you'll be fine. So under the getting started, I have added Microsoft Azure account, reviewed worker configuration, added repository. Now I can create my first backup policy. Okay, this is something that I'm going to do. HC demo Azure, trying to be consistent over here today. And then I have specified my Azure Active Directory, which I'm logging into. That's fine. And then I can define the region where my protection is going to take place. And then I need to specify the resource, the name of the virtual machine, which I'll try to protect. So for this one, I believe I'm going to point it to VBSF. This is like another project that I'm running, but I would like it to be protected over here. So as you can see, I'm going to protect just one resource over there, this particular virtual machine. I'm gonna click on apply, click next. This is where you can define your guest processing settings, if anything. And this is where you can select to enable backups. Okay, so this is helpful, and I'm going to come back to it in a moment. And the next step is actually to talk about the schedule options. I'll opt in for daily retention with daily settings. So I'll clear everything, and I will enable a couple of snapshots, like 3 snapshots and 1 backup during 24-hour period. After that, I have to specify daily retention, snapshots to keep, for example, 3 of them, and backups to keep 7 backups. And as for repository, I'm going to point it out to one of the newest repositories that I've created. It's going to be in hot tier. Let's click on apply, let's click next, and let's just go through it. Unless you actually want to stop here for a second then to talk about cost estimation, because this particular backup policy gives me, because of all of the settings that I have provided for this, VM protection, it actually gives me a good estimate of how much I'm going to spend at the end of the month. Well, Azure is going to charge me for this virtual machine protection, and I can here decide whether I'm doing something crazy, whether I need to work with retention or with something else. Okay, I gotta click next and then finish just right away. I'm trying to see the policy created over here, and it was never executed. So I gotta click on start. You can see the snapshots and the backups are running. Okay, so I managed to bring Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure up and running, configured, and with first backup policy, some VM is already protected, as you can see, and as the snapshot has success status, and the backup is running right now. So under, what is it, like 20 minutes? Okay, and now I'm going to kind of quickly do the same with AWS appliance, and then later kind of show you in Veeam backup application what I've got at the moment. As you can see, the AWS appliance it's already like everything is green, all good. So I'm gonna click on finish, and actually now I don't need repository created, but I'm going to click finish. Okay, so under my managed servers over here, I've got yet another one, AWS backup appliance added. So this time I won't even go to my AWS console and try to do something crazy. I will just, kind of right click on it, right from Veeam backup and application console, and follow this link. There you go. You can see Veeam backup for AWS being initiated. Okay, show me what's new. Yeah, I'm showing that again. I'm good. I know immutable backups. I know everything about scalability, so all good. So now inside of AWS, we get to do pretty much the same thing with some slight alterations. Okay, the first account was already pre-created as an IAM role in AWS, and then I'll, if I come back to getting started, okay, configure workers, the thing to do. Okay, I'm going to add worker configuration, something that I did already for Azure, just right here in AWS. Since I'm working with different region and data center, I'm going for Europe and Frankfurt, and selecting virtual private cloud, which is something that I have created over there, subnet, and the security group. Okay, VPA security group. Basically, security group, just make sure that HTTPS connection inbound traffic is open, or otherwise consult with user guide to actually to see what is it, what kind of ports you need to have there. As you can see, verification checks, all good. Then I click finish. Also, worker is configured, getting started. Now let's go into add another repository, HC demo AWS. I'm operating on behalf of this IAM role, and let's check if I've got enough permissions to actually to add the repository. So all of my permissions go in green, and then I'm just specifying the bucket in that region where I would like my data to be actually stored at the end. Again, two options to select the bucket with object lock enabled, therefore immutability enabled, or without it. So I'll go for no immutability, just for simplicity, and I'm going to use new folder AWS. Later storage class, if I need the standard, I'm going to go with standard, but then Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive also available. And as you can see, immutability settings are grayed out just because I use the bucket without object lock enabled. Okay, so I'll gotta click next and consider enabling encryption, which is something that I'm not going to do. But again, I would highly recommend for all of you, working with it, actually do that. Okay, let's exit configuration. Under the settings log, you can see that backup repository, it was already created, all good. So back to configuration to getting started. And now first backup policy. Okay, so the first backup policy, again, HC demo AWS. I'm trying to be consistent for this demo. Again, IAM role, the default one that we have created automatically for you. All good, all account meets the settings. Let's select data center in Frankfurt, my resources to be protected, and let's navigate to one specific resource, that one specific EC2 instance that I need to protect. Just trying to rush it a little bit. EasyTest1. Actually, I gotta protect like multiple things, just in case. Okay, protect those two EC2 instances. I don't need to exclude any volumes. I don't need to do anything on request processing. And then I would need to enable backups and specify that repository as a destination for the backups. I'm not going to create or to archive like additional copies of the data into archive repository, but this is something that you can consider. And again, going to work on a schedule, for example, like, 4 snapshots per day, something like that, and then 1 backup. Again, settings for retention. I'm trying to be modest and just use like 3 snapshots and 7 days worth of backups. And that's really it. A quick look at the cost estimation. Okay, you can see the drop down of all of the EC2 instances that I've added and the total estimated cost here. I'll click next. I'll click finish. And my first EC2 protection policy would be already created. So I'll exit out of configuration over here and navigate to policies under EC2, because you can see multiple tabs over here leading me to policies for RDS, for VPC, and for EFS protection. but this is the my first policy for EC2 settings and EC2 instances, and I've added 2 of them over here, so I'm trying to protect them. Okay, so this is running. Okay, so this is cool. I'm still on time. Now let's come back to Veeam Backup and Replication to see what's going on here. Okay, as you might remember, so I have added this HC demo AWS. I have deployed these backup appliances right from Veeam Backup and Replication, but I have deployed the Azure appliance from Microsoft Azure. So this is a good time right now to actually make sure this Veeam Backup and Replication actually knows about this appliance in Azure. As you can see here, I can connect or deploy a new one. So I'm connected to the existing one. For this one, I need to specify my Azure compute account, but trust me, it will be really easy for you if you do that, if you try to do it. Okay, so my appliance is in East US region, and then now you can see in the list of the virtual machines in that region, I can see this right away, right here, HC demo Azure. This is something that I have deployed right from Azure Marketplace, but now I'll try to connect to this existing appliance. Direct connection, credentials. This is something that is going to work. Repositories. If I had like encryption and I had a password whenever I was creating those repositories, I would have actually needed to provide this password right now, so we would be able to kind of to decrypt this data and to see it over here. This might be like taking a couple of seconds, right?
Yeah, and while we're doing that, AZ, I know I'm conscious of time, so let's let this roll, and then Kirsten, I think it makes sense for you to spin up your part of this demo. But before we do that, AZ, there was a really good question in the chat from Donald that I was going to answer, but I decided it was probably better to get it out loud for everybody else to hear. So the question is, how do you handle data duplication and compression to optimize storage utilization in hybrid cloud? And how do you address challenges related to data latency and access times in this sort of hybrid cloud, potentially geographically dispersed location? So I know those are kind of 2 different things. How do you handle dedupe and storage costs? And then separately, how might you handle latency? So I figured while that was spinning, it might be a good time to ask you that.
Okay, yeah, obviously it's a good time, because right now, just like, let me explain what's happening here. So I'm adding Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure appliance, and you can see, well, a couple of checks over here, everything's green, all good. Okay, so now back to the question. Obviously it's a little bit different from the regular virtual world, but then I've got a key indicator for you. So this is the worker and worker configuration, the additional workload that we're using in order to process the traffic. So this is our way to actually to work on deduplication and compression. And in fact, this is something that is kind of performing compression on the go. So whenever the data hits the object storage in the cloud already, it's going to be kind of reduced in amount. There was additional one, the additional about like kind of advanced configuration between regions and like how you follow the traffic. So this is where you have to be careful. This is where you have to understand how the cloud works and how, like where those data centers are. And for example, my main lab is in Ohio State. So I'm pretty sure whenever I'm using AWS data center in Ohio, the data doesn't actually leave the state, and it would be kind of relatively low latency, because my lab is placed in a data center which has direct connection to AWS data center, so like low latency. But then whenever you're thinking about moving the data across the world, using Australia, using, I don't know, like Middle East data centers, just for like redundancy purposes, something like that, obviously you have to be careful because it's going to cost you definitely more money. It's going to add additional latency. There is no way we can beat up the physics, right? So if there is a, I don't know, the data center in Middle East, obviously the data have to follow it and have to go for several gateways between kind of going internet before that. So probably to conclude all of that, you have to think about the architecture of the process that you are trying to do. Hope that kind of solves the issue right now. Okay, Kirsten, I'm ready to pass it over to you, but just hear me out. A couple of more things. So I have created or deployed Veeam backup for Azure right from Azure Marketplace. I have deployed Veeam backup for AWS right from Veeam backup application. Now under managed services over here, I can see both of them. Okay, you can see HC demo AWS, HC demo Azure. Why is it important for me? Because obviously they're managed by the same Veeam backup replication server, which means that my license, which is universal license, is passed to them right from this Veeam backup application server. It's really good. And now also I can see all of the operations that they are doing. Again, HC demo AWS, AWS. Why is it 3 times? Because once it should be one particular EC2 instance that I'm protecting, and then it would be the snapshots and the backups. The snapshots is additional snapshots in AWS cloud. The backups is additional data in AWS S3. And this is really cool because I can basically overview all of them right from one Veeam backup application console, even though sometimes my operations would require me to go to Azure and to AWS and to corresponding consoles. But overall, I can see everything right from here. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kirsten because depending on what I've been doing, she have already connected her Veeam1 instance to my Veeam backup application, and now she should be able to show you what's from her side, what's visible over there. So Kirsten, I'm going to to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Andre. Okay, let me show my screen. Okay, you should be hopefully seeing my screen. It looks like a blue Windows background.
Yep, I can see.
Awesome, thanks. So now that you're protecting your cloud workloads, we want to transition into how you can maintain compliance and observability for these workloads. And for this, we use Veeam1, which is a part of the Veeam data platform. Veeam1 is going to provide you visibility into both protected and unprotected cloud-native services across a variety of public cloud platforms, including AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. The first thing that I want to show you is one of the reports that Veeam1 has, and it's called Protected Cloud Instances Report. So if I click on the Veeam1 web client and I open this up, I'm going to have to enter my credentials real quick. And then it's going to take me into the dashboard view. So if you're familiar with Veeam1, this probably looks familiar to you. This is where you're going to see at-a-glance views of your environment. But I want to really talk about the reports. So if I come down here to the Veeam backup for public cloud reports, you're going to be able to run this report. And so first, you're going to want to choose your RPO. So depending on your organization, this might be 24 hours, 12 hours, 4 hours. You can specify that here, but you can also get a little bit more granular with the amount of time here as well. Next, you're going to choose the instance type. So if you want to get specific on your EC2 instances or maybe RDS, you can specify that here as well. So next, I'm going to click preview this report, and it's going to generate this report, and it's going to be able to tell me which machines are protected and which ones are unprotected. especially when we think about automation tools being used more than ever to deploy and configure machines. This report is really going to help identify where some instances might have been left unprotected. So if I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger for you guys. So I can immediately see in my environment, which machines are meeting my recovery point objectives and which ones are not. I have a total of 13 instances running. I have my AWS that Andre has configured. I have my Microsoft Azure machines here included within this report. And if you're using Google Cloud Platform as well, those machines will be included in this report as well. So if you're thinking about you're utilizing multiple clouds, maybe you have some machines running in AWS and some machines running in Azure, this is really going to be able to put all that data in one place for you, so you can see and make sure that those machines are protected. If I go into the next page, you're going to be able to see which instance is protected, the protection type, the policy, and the last protection date. And this is really going to drill down per cloud. So this one was AWS, the one previously was Azure. And then you're going to be able to see your unprotected cloud instances. So really being able to identify, hey, these ones are not protected. Maybe I need to go into my backup solution and reconfigure my jobs so I can catch these machines and make sure they're protected. What's really great about this too is that you're going to be able to schedule this report to be delivered to your inbox. So you can save the report. You can say, hey, every day I want to get this report delivered to my inbox because maybe I have my backups running at night when not much is going on. You can specify to send it to your email and the report format. And then lastly, you can just put in your email here. So you don't even have to open up the Veeam One web client to know if your machines are being protected. This is also a great report to share with people, share with any key stakeholders in your organization to show you, hey, we are protecting our machines and we're following our compliance and regulations. Next, I'm going to hop into the Veeam One client. So this is really your central hub for monitoring. And as you can see here, I have my Veeam backup and replication server added. This is what Andre was configuring those backup jobs in. And if I switch over here, there's this little tab. You can see all my cloud jobs that have been configured. So the jobs that Andre just configured, this HC demo for AWS, HC demo for Azure, have already been integrated within Veeam One, so I can see their status, if it was successful or if it failed. Now there's also alarms here that's going to also tell you, if something is not working properly. And you can see that we had a backup error, and I can drill down and see, which policies did not complete successfully, so I can go and fix those issues before any sort of disaster happens in my environment. So Veeam One is a great tool that you're going to be able to use to track the status of your data, of the last backup copy, making sure that you have that real-time visibility for protected cloud workloads. If you're using something like object storage in the public cloud as a repository, Veeam One is also going to be able to monitor those buckets and see how much capacity is being taken up as well. So Veeam One is just going to add that extra layer of visibility, making sure that you're protecting your machines. Now, all in all, some key takeaways from our presentation today is, first thing is, you can deploy Veeam Backup for AWS or Veeam Backup from Azure from the marketplace or right from Veeam Backup and Replication. If you already have Veeam Backup for AWS running and you want to make sure that it's integrated with VBR and you can see that within the backup console, all you need to do is connect to that existing appliance that Andre has demonstrated for you earlier in this webinar. Next, you're going to want to make sure you're checking that worker configuration. Like Andre mentioned earlier within his demonstration, the worker is really going to be imperative to make sure that you're moving that data to the backup repository, It's going to process the backup workload and distribute backup traffic. So you're going to want to make sure that those are configured properly, because if not, you're going to have backup errors. The next thing, snapshots or backups. Now, if you've been protecting data for years now, you know that snapshots are not backups. So it's important to have both of them configured. They're going to offer you, different protection capabilities. Fourth is, with automation being very present within the industry today, being able to deploy applications in the cloud fast, it's important to be able to monitor those resources and ensure they're protected. And Veeam is going to help monitor them and identify any unprotected machines across clouds. And then lastly, making sure you're tracking backup status. If you're not checking that your backups are finishing successfully, if something happens and you have to restore that and your backup has failed the last couple weeks, you're going to have some issues with restoring. You're going to have some data loss. So making sure that you have that visibility and making sure that your backups are finishing successfully and you're maintaining compliance is really going to be helpful when using Veeam 1. And if you need any more, you want to get hands-on in the lab, we have great Azure Cloud Labs and AWS Cloud Labs that you can get started with and get more hands-on. It's a great opportunity for you, especially if you've never used the products before, to just try it out in a lab environment. So with that, I'll pass it back to Leah, and you can ask us any more questions or close us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Yeah, there has been tremendous engagement on the Q&A, so please feel free to keep those questions coming. I know we're close to the top of the hour, but just to kind of recap some of the discussions that we've had outside of the question that I called out earlier, there was a lot of great questions and conversation about what are some of the best practices to manage storage accounts, especially when you're looking at something like a primary site, a secondary site or region. What's really interesting about working in the cloud is those of us in backup land, we understand the concept of separation and how important separating your data for resiliency purposes can be. But when we talk with cloud engineers, so any of your kind of colleagues who might be managing AWS or Azure, they oftentimes get it to a certain extent, but not in the way that we kind of have it baked into our DNA. So one of the things that the Veeam backup for AWS, Azure, and Google solutions do is, inherently offer this idea of logical separation. So in the data center, we're backing up production data. We typically store that in some sort of secondary storage. And then somebody else asked a question about the 32110 rule. You likely want to put that on a different media, so tape. Something might need to be off-site, so put it in Iron Mountain. But in the cloud, it's a little bit different because it's all this hyperscale thing, and so you have to create that separation. So one of the things we recommend is creating a dedicated backup account so that it's, again, logically separate from a lot of your primary data. And the great thing about the way Veeam is designed is you don't necessarily need to, in the way that not using a backup solution would be, you don't need to move huge storage snapshots from one region to another, oftentimes depending on which cloud it is, paying some kind of fee or dealing with some kind of issue. With Veeam, you're able to move that backup around in the kind of portability that we expect in the on-premises solutions. So it's definitely a really cool part of bringing this to the cloud space, is bringing some of the best practices of backup from on-premises and translating them to the cloud. So that was a really good couple of questions there. I'm just flipping through and seeing if there's anything else that we wanted to call out. AZ, Kirsten, I don't know if you guys wanted to call any other questions that you saw out. A couple more questions coming in too. Go ahead.
Just by looking through here, it looks like you guys pretty much have answered everything pretty thoroughly already.
I'm trying my best. Thank you so for all of the questions. It's really hard to follow all of them, but yeah. Obviously there is a question about Google Cloud, and ladies, I told you that we have to talk about Google Cloud as well.
Yes.
This was the initial kind of thought between us whether we should cover 3 of those or not. But essentially, if you're thinking about Google Cloud, it's pretty much the same concept. We've got pretty much the same appliance. Kind of the whole workflow is very similar. I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think that's what's nice about all the Veeam solutions is there's a sort of DNA across all of them. So even if you look at Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365, Salesforce, et cetera, they all feel pretty similar. And that's our goal. I think we want to empower you guys as Veeam users to be able to back up as many of your critical pieces of data as possible and observe it in the ways that Kirsten showed earlier. Because that's the reality now. We can't operate in these silos as app teams and cloud teams and data center teams. We need to be working together, if for no other reason than, ransomware is obviously top of mind, top of the food chain in a lot of ways in what everybody's doing. So being able to pull everything together with confidence, I think is a really big game changer. So with that, I know we are over time, so we'll hang out on the Q&A and try to answer some of these last couple of questions that have been coming through. But thank you all so much for joining us. If you do want to check out these solutions, but don't want to be perhaps using your own cloud infrastructure, aka paying for it, Kirsten has put on the slides some links and specifically some QR codes to some hands-on labs that we have available. Veeam is definitely spending a lot of time creating hands-on labs for our end users. We really think that that's the best way for you guys to engage with some of these new solutions. So, pull your camera phone out, open that photo app, and it should take you straight to some pages where you can interact directly with these solutions. But thank you guys so much. We will be sending out the recording and the couple of slides that we did have, but mostly the recording because this was a almost completely demo session with this webinar. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we look forward to the next one.